It's Lil Baby.
Welcome to episode 31 of Conversations with Chai. I'm your host, Ihram Chowdhury, aka Lil Baby Ram. Today, I have with me all of my three A's. I got with me Chef Abishek. You might have seen him, Madamji's, Raang. Yo, you've definitely eaten at his restaurants. And then I have from Sewington, my boys, Akhil Aditya. Yo, guys, appreciate y'all doing this. And I just want to start because I always ask people this, like anytime I'm at any type of dinner, I always ask people, this is like my conversation started, but I was really curious about you guys. I always ask people, what is y'all's favorite dining experience? And I asked that question with like a very specific purpose because one of my top 5 dining experiences was the one that Bangti hosted and then was also Sewington's. I think like those are like very memorable meals for me. I talked about the take on doubles that Chef Abishek made. And then I was talking to you about the mango cocktail you made. And that dining experience is not just like, oh, what was the best food you've had, but like truly the best dining experience.
Right.
You guys have one top of mind?
For me, I think it's the one back home. Like there's this community called Newari people in the city, Kathmandu, and they have these huge wedding. And what they do is they make people sit on the floor, like a whole line of people, and they serve you 28 courses. Like they slaughter a whole buffalo and they use from the tip to the tail. And they're cooking like 26 to 30 different dishes with it. And it's a celebration going on. Like how you said, like a big celebration going on, but everyone's focused on eating there because it's the foods, and all the females from the community, they come together and they're the one preparing the food in an open flame fire. So you're getting this whole experience of people coming out with food, they're serving you, and also you're having communication. I feel like that is why I wanted to cook as well, because food is something that just brings people together and it just makes everything so beautiful and fun.
Yeah, and honestly, like that's like one of the big reasons I wanted to do this episode is because when I think about like the spreading of like culture, right? I really think like there's the most direct way that I've seen it. Obviously, like we're going to see South Asian like music transverse and go into different cultures and go into the mainstream, right? But the place I've seen it like the most has been within food, right? Like I was telling Aditya, like I was at Junoon yesterday, right? And it's like, yo, like the crowd is not like all brown, right? It's like you got every type of person in there, right? Getting to try like cuisines that like we grew up with. And it's like, it's so sick, like y'all and y'all respective businesses bringing that to a bunch of people. Even Sewington, like it wasn't like all brown people, right? No. People from BuzzFeed, right? Like there's so many people that would never experience like a chicken tikka, right? Or never experience like dishes that like a mango lassi, right? But now you get to do it in like a cool, like our version of it, right? And it's like the spreading of the culture, but it's also the enhancement of that culture. Because otherwise, like those things kind of like die out when they come here, right?
Of course. I think also it's the fact that like brown food or food is South Asian food was never being seen. Like when I grew up in this country, and there was like, Indian food wasn't a thing. Now it's a thing. It's beautiful. It's art. It's there's so many parts of India or even South Asian countries where, there's like, for example, Nepal, we have dishes from Nepal, we have dishes from India, from Bangladesh, Pakistan. There's different parts of it that has not even been explored yet. Like, the food, the creativity, and it all does bring people together.
No, and that is, I think, like one of like the more, I think, cooler things about like y'all, right? Because when I think about like the stigma around it, like when people used to look at as like Indian food, right? It might be something you do as like a takeout dish, right? But the fact that like it's like now at this like level, right? And even like y'all, like just like from like the aesthetics, right? It's like, yo, Chef Abishek like tatted up, like look, you know what I'm saying? To make no, like because to offer a certain level of like cool to it, honestly, right? Because you want to be able to look at like our chefs and our foods and be like, no, this isn't like just like something you get for takeout, right? Like it's not like just like like Chinese food takeout. Like this can be like Michelin level type food, right? Like we can offer a Michelin level experience with this, right?
Of course. Go ahead.
One of the biggest inspirations why we started the Sewington is because we saw that happening in New York. And to answer your previous question, I think for me, the most transformative dining experience was when I ate at Junoon like 6 years ago, because that was the first time I had Indian food, like my culture it presented in that way. Right. And it was just so different to what you're talking about. And we were like wanting to elevate Indian food and just the perspective around it. Like, oh, I want to go out and have something fun typically people don't think of Indian food. So we wanted to create an experience that embodied that. And that's why we made it like a point to include a drink pairing with it. Whether you get cocktails or mocktails, like it's up to you, but we want you to have fun at the dinner. So it's part of our creativity, our experience.
Because that's like more reflective of like the culture that I'm in, right? Like obviously when I grew up South Asian food, right? It's like with my parents and like in like a very familial environment, right? But I'm like now like, yo, like I'm my own like person at like 27. I have a certain like lifestyle that I want to live. So like having a mango lassi cocktail, right?
Yeah.
Like and being able to like experience my food, but in a way that I would actually enjoy, right? Like that to me is like one of the biggest testaments to what all of y'all have created within New York, and right, and continue to create. And I know y'all really do it for the love of it too, right? Because I know we were talking about before, and I really want to get into that. Like we were talking about like this isn't for the money, right? Like we were talking about it, and
Right.
I want to offer some like levels of transparency because like Aditya brought up a really good point. Like a lot of people like glamorize like being a chef, and as they should. It is like
course.
one of the coolest things, right? Like y'all are really creating art in front of people, right? But we talked about it before. I was under the assumption that a chef was probably making like 150, 250, half a mil,
Yeah.
depending on the restaurant, right? But I was like shocked because you said, what was the restaurant that you said that was a 3 Michelin here?
I mean, not 3 Michelin, but what I was saying was like even 2, 3 Michelin star restaurant, like their head chef, they're not gonna make 100K a year. They're gonna make around like 60, 70K. And they just do it because they want to be related to this restaurant. See, the goal as a chef, when you're playing it at that level, is not to make money working for somebody else. The goal becomes different. It's about creating your own different world where you can do the food you want to do. Because I feel like that dream dies. Like for me, the reason why I want to do Swing Tin and why I want to, like if you ask me when like, I get this question a lot, like when are you opening a restaurant? I will only open a restaurant when I am like filthy rich and I have passionate people around me who trust my judgment for me to open this restaurant that's going to like that is going to let me do what I want to do.
Yeah.
It's not going to be about money.
Because even when Aditya and I met, we worked at a 1-star Michelin restaurant. And when I would tell my friends like, oh, I'm working at this restaurant, I'm a line cook, they'd be like, oh my God, it's like, that's a really good restaurant. You must be making a good amount of money. No, you start out, you're making 15 an hour, whatever the minimum is.
But I think to y'all point, right? Like it really is for like the love of like the food, right? Because even now, like you have like 3 restaurants in, you're still tinkering with the menu, still doing whatever like speaks to your passion.
It is a passion, right? It's like these guys are doing it. It's about bringing experience to the table, right? Like our brunches, we bring music, food, everything together. You know, even just having like a meal, for example, like pani puris, we do in shot classes with dry ice because it's just about an experience. It's a love of art, and that's what we try to display in our restaurant.
And sorry,
Yeah.
I think what you're mentioning is so important to like our community as a culture, because we do really surround, like we as a community, any community, right? Like you were talking about, like it is a communal experience, right? Like food and eating is a communal experience. So having a place like a Madamji's where we can like go and like it's our music, it's our food, it's like our cocktails, right? And being able to share that with like our people, like, because I understand that like, yo, you'd only do it for the love of it, but it's so important that y'all continue to do it for the love of it, right? Because those spaces need to be created, right? Like I want to be able to go to a South Asian owned restaurant. Like I just want to, right? Like,
I mean, what you're saying makes sense, and I totally respect like where you're coming from. But me, because I grew up in Nepal, I came here when I was 19 years old. I feel like the way I see food is like you said, you came to Junoon, you just didn't see South Asian people there, did you? I feel like it's more than just because if black pepper didn't transfer from India to the world, there would be no French food, no Italian, nothing. Because all like the whole thing about food is it always changed. But at this scale, it's just changing so drastically that we think it's fusion food. But it was the same way before as well. But the way it changed was just different. So how, like, I get it, like Chef Abishek, he has his own like aspiration. Like I said, everybody has their own aspirations with food. For me, because I'm in New York City, it's more about, I want to be like, talk about Bob Marley. He sang reggae, right? But he just didn't sing to his people. He sang to the world. You're talking about John Lennon. He didn't just sing to white people. He sang to the world. Jimi Hendrix, his guitar just didn't like touch soul of Black community in America. It touched the soul of every person who listened to him. I think for me, like that's what I want to bring with food.
No, for sure. But that's what I mean about like the spaces like being for, again, back to Junoon, having like spreading something like a dish that I've always had, like for example, like a dal. Right? Yeah. I'm like that is like something like, you know, my mom's been making dal, like that's like one of my favorite dishes, period, right? But then seeing it live on, right? Because that's like what I'm more so focused on, right? Not necessarily like, yo, keeping it with us, right? It is the spreading of it, but spreading it so it can live on, right? Because the only way it lives on and the way that we want to see it live on is through the elevation of those dishes, right? Like it's the elevation of those dishes where it becomes palatable to the eye, palatable to the taste, so people are willing to try. Because we know that those dishes are fire.
Right. But it's also a journey, though. It's also a journey that you're taking back to the restaurant. Like, people are coming in for an experience. It's a journey. Like, I'm trying to educate you what music is about, what food is about, what the culture is about. Why do we do this? Like, what the Indian clothes are about. You know, this country is run by brown people.
Yeah.
You know, this whole country is run by brown people, you know, from CEOs to, the vice president. It's all brown people. So we need to educate them. And how do we do it? We do it through food.
And that's why I truly appreciated like the Sowington experience, because I understand, because you guys talk about each of the dishes and like the source of inspiration of the dish, right? Because I think that's important, because like food being like a story, like telling a story, right? Telling the story of like obviously y'all individual stories, right? Behind each of your individual dishes, but also telling the story of a people, right? Like how did this dish even like come to be?
Right.
Right? I like certain dishes, like I truly wonder, like we were joking around about it earlier, right? Like how do y'all come up with a menu item, right? Like how do you all take a chicken tikka? That's everyone, all three of you, I'm sure, have a chicken tikka dish somewhere, somewhere along your menu, somewhere in your repertoire, there's a chicken tikka dish, right?
Right.
But like you were saying, very different takes on it.
Right. It's also from traveling a lot through the journeys. Like, you know, I've just been traveling a lot in India, and my dad cooks. My father's a chef, so he cooks a lot of traditional food. And again, he had a restaurant called Surya in the 2000s. One of the restaurants of his time. You know, we had Harrison Ford, Hilary Swank, all these people just sitting at the bar. You know, it was a very modern restaurant of its time. 1-page menu. And that's what people don't believe. Like what the tradition right now, like the Indian restaurants, is like a Bible. It's like, you know, there's like dishes from north, south. We're now trying to be very focused on dishes, like, you know, just in terms of presentation. And these guys, you know, obviously can explain that too. That, you know, it's all about focus. It's about the region. It's about what we want to show the people.
Yeah.
I feel like
for me, I mean, my inspiration's like my family.
Yeah.
Like my mom, like she's got like 30 years of cooking experience on me, right? And so every time I go home, I learn something new. And even with this past menu, our salad dish came about from her making me like a bhaji or sabji, like a beet curry. And so I wanted to take that and combine it with other influences I've had, either through culinary school, you know, that French exposure working at Junoon. And even when we did that event at Madamji, the truffle sabudana vada was like a take on, you know, what I grew up eating, Maharashtrian cuisine, and then New York influence on it.
No, but I love that, because then it's like truly it's the authentic and organic advancement of those, right? Because it's not, hey, like it's cool that our moms were able to make these like dishes, right?
Yeah.
And that not that anybody could do, but anybody could like go look at a cookbook and like make a dal, or like go look at a cookbook and make a chicken tikka, right? But the fact that like you're able to take it and be like, okay, like that was like my mom's dish, right? But then how do I make it like personal to me, right? The same way that she probably made it personal to her, right? Like I'm sure that it came from her mom's. And
it's like for me personally, it's like bringing that New York swag to the, you know, to that cuisine, right? It's like I'm from New York. My parents are from India. My dad's a professional chef from like Bukhara, which is the top 10 restaurants in India. So I'm like, Dad, this has been cooking for years and years, but let's change it up. You know, let's do let's play with it. And I think that's something that people are not like, you know, now that trend has changed. People are playing with food. People are actually, you know, trying to make it look sexy, which wasn't, you know, the case back in the day. So
no, but that's important. Like, because when we talk about like the advancement, I always say like, there's like, if you're like not going to add something like new to something, like whether it be like podcasting, whether it be cooking, whether it be music, you might as well just not do it. Like straight up, like, because like if you're just going to recreate something, because that's what I think really truly makes something like rememberable and remarkable, right? Is the fact that it is a South Asian dish with like some New York swag, right? Like it's like something we haven't seen, and right, like for you, like having a completely different story than these two, right?
Yeah.
Each of y'all individual story
Uh-huh.
being completely different, right?
Okay.
You talked, like, Akhil talked a lot about, and I really like that, like the food sustainability aspect of your cooking, right? And I was like, oh, like that's like something that's like personal to you.
Yeah.
Like you had like, obviously, like you can tell the story again, right? But you had like a whole narrative around like why you chose to like cook like that way, right? And I was like, oh, that's personal to you, right? And that makes like the food more authentic, right? Then I feel like, oh, like there's a true relationship with you, the chef, and whoever's eating it. It's not just like, oh, I made this dish,
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, food made with love is just time and thought.
right? Like the best food, like when we think about it, like I'm sure everybody thinks that their mom is the best cook,
Yeah,
right?
uh-huh.
And it's not because like, you know, from the taste palette and all of that. It's truly the like love and story
time
behind
she
that, right?
puts inside in it, you know. I feel like also with food, like Akhil focuses more on this, but I feel like being sustainable with food, like making it sexy, all this, like it plays a great role when it comes to like providing it to the guests. But I feel like if your dad wouldn't have given you that backbone, like that backbone of flavor, that palate, everything, I don't think you would have become the chef that you are right now.
Of course not.
So it's like you said, your mom's dishes. I feel like anybody who eats good food cooks good food
Mhm.
because they can relate back to it, right?
Right.
Like me and Akhil, like every time we're cooking something, we always have a tasting spoon here. I feed him, he feeds me because he trusts
Kind of
me.
cute.
Yeah, because we trust each other. Like it's also like these days, I feel like, see, everything like once it gets glamorized, it gets very hollow, right?
Mhm.
Even with food, I know you have been to some restaurants in New York City where you look at the food and it's so beautiful, but then you eat it and you're like, yo, bro, I don't want this. That has happened to you as well, right?
You, for us, it's like also about bringing the flavor.
Bringing,
But aside from the presentation, I want to make sure that it's very authentic. The spices are used. You know, a lot of places do not use right spices and the right, you know, the right formula for it. But we want to make sure that we have that. Like, you know, we have things being ordered from India. You know, just to bring the authentic, you know, things.
I'm not gonna name names, but I've definitely been to some Indian restaurants where I could tell, like,
Yeah,
you know, this is a white acquiescing Indian restaurant,
100%,
right? Because
right?
I can tell. I'm not gonna name names of restaurants that I'm eating at where that's been true, because I've really felt that way, right? And that's why I thought like eating at Madamji's, right? Eating at Sowington, I was like, I understand that there's you can taste
Yeah.
the authenticity behind it, right? Like I was bringing up that the mango lassi cocktail, right? I've seen everybody can put mango juice and put some vodka in it, right?
Yeah.
But I was like, no, this is really and I told the people that I was sitting with at the time, this is scratching a part of my brain. It's like somehow fusing a part of my childhood with my current day, right? Like that is going to be like an everlasting like mental connection that I will have because of the authenticity of
the
it.
New York City swag,
I mean,
right there.
What it
the way,
is.
the way we see dining is it's, you know, experience of the senses, fulfilling the senses. And I feel like you can sense when someone puts their story behind it.
That was
100%.
that was also the reason why the event with Kunal that we did, it was so, because we were bringing all these senses
Added
together.
sense, music.
Bro, shout out to Kunal for putting that together too, because that's why I always ask, even the top of the question, right? The dining experience, right? Because to me, it's not just the food, right? It is all the experiences, because all I associate those back when I talk about dining experiences, those are core memories.
Right.
Like, those are core memories.
Of course. And then, you know, like for now, we're understanding and we're also doing this, like it's the five senses. As soon as you walk in, you're going to smell something. You're going to see something. You're going to eat, you know, you're going to feel something. So all the senses have to be triggered as soon as you walk into my establishment.
Yeah, no, and I think of course you guys understand that, because I can tell based off of even like the fact that you guys give the simple thing of like giving the Sowington right at the end of the meal. I was like, because everybody at the table was like, damn, I don't even think I've tried one of these. I don't think I've gotten the chance to try one of these cookies, because every time I opened it, and I was like, damn, that just speaks to like the child in me, right? Because I was like, damn, like that's
The nostalgia, right?
the nostalgia of it, right?
We didn't realize the memories we were creating with because now our brand's all about nostalgia and combining that, like the experience you talked about, until when we did the event at Madamji with Punkti, we had one of the guests reach out because it was New Year's, like right before New Year's. He was like, yo, I was just recounting my year.
Nice.
And the event we did at Madamji's where you guys cooked those 2 courses was one of my favorite events all year. And that really
Yeah,
struck
it
a
hit
chord
him
with us.
hard, and he
Yeah.
texted me. I was like, "Bro, this is so amazing."
Like I talked to him for like 5 minutes, and he said it was one of his favorite experiences all year.
No, dude. Like
Thank you
I'm
so much.
That was a great experience. I think that was one of the best events we had thrown in our restaurants.
Yeah. I was at the, again, I was there and I was just like, again, like last minute, like kind of just decided to show up, right? And I was blown away with like the experience that was like truly created there, right?
Yeah.
Like I still like, and again, back to like why certain meals and things end up becoming like memorable.
Yeah.
I remember like who I was talking to, right? And like what the conversations were like. And then the food being at like the center of that, right?
Uh-huh.
It really truly is. And that's why like this episode was very important to me. It is a community building thing that you
100%.
guys do, right?
Right.
Also, I feel like it builds a community in a more authentic way, because being in New York City, what I've realized is the way how people get along with each other is, like, if you think about it, it's the easiest way for people to get along is to backbite or like talk shit about some other person, about a third person. And when you have a close community, there's a lot of that. And me personally, I don't like being around people. So with food, I feel like there's this genuine gathering of people where there's only love, respect, and fun. You know, that's what they're focused on. Nobody's focused on like, you know, like negating, like just no bad energy. It's just about, okay, we're in the present.
Because you're
And-
enjoying
yeah,
it.
you're
You're like, damn,
Uh-huh.
I get to eat. Like that's one of my favorite things
Yeah,
to
yeah.
do, honestly. I
Uh-huh.
get to eat, right? And like it is such like when you really boil it down, it is such like a trust thing, right? Like
Mhm.
think about the people that have provided like meals for us, right? Like we grow up and it's like that's like such an essential thing. Like that's why like our moms, right? Like that's like how you
Uh-huh.
express like love,
Right.
right? Like that's like the type of culture that we all
Yeah.
come from too, right? Where like the expression of food is truly how a lot of South Asian moms just show
Showing
love.
Yeah,
Like that's like
that's true.
sometimes that's the only way they're able to show
show
love,
love.
right?
My mom
Uh-huh.
still always in the kitchen. She's
Huh?
always cooking. She's cooking right now as we
Always
speak.
cooking. Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? Like for us, I mean, even I'm assuming you guys too. It's like we get so tired of eating our own food. We just want to go back home. You know, mom's cooking. You know, or dad's cooking, or whatever. It's the best thing.
Which shows you that it truly is like the emotional aspect of it, because y'all are like, yo, top of your game chefs, right? Like the fact that y'all can go anywhere and enjoy a meal is like very hard for me to like believe, right?
Yeah.
But I get it, right? Because it's like yo, like I get to, you know, like it is a personal experience for you guys as
Of
well.
course, yeah.
Like
But it's also art too, right? Like when these guys are doing that, I've been to Soyington, and when these guys were coming out and telling everything like about each dish, it's art. It's what they, you know, this is their vision of that dish. Right? Everybody has their own vision for it.
And I think that's like the cooler part. And I would love to talk about like that too, right? Like the visual aspect of how you guys are also presenting the food. Cause like, I also think that like all five senses, right? Like the food isn't just like the taste, right? So much of it, I know so many people that are just like visual eaters, right?
Uh-huh.
Where if it doesn't like look
Good.
because you can like, listen, I could put something together and it could taste good, right? But I know I'm not gonna be able to present it in any type of way, right?
Right.
But that's such like a big element of it, right? Like before I take that first bite, like how beautiful, and some of the out dishes like look like gorgeous, right? It's like,
Right.
oh, I want to eat this. Like it almost like hurts me to eat it, but I know I want to try it, right? Like, and like that, I think like, because when we were going through like the Soyington dishes, right? Like that was like a big part of it for y'all, right?
Mhm.
Like, because I know back to the food sustainability piece, right? Using certain dishes to garnish
Uh-huh.
the dish and make sure that it like looks the way that it's supposed to.
Right.
Yeah, you want to talk about it?
No, for me, for example, the garnish has to like match the dish, right? It has to be edible with it. It just can't be just put on just because it looks beautiful. It needs to be like, all right, this goes with the dish, right?
And I think that is that like a challenge that y'all look at, like incorporating that food.
I feel like for me, the way like I told you, every chef has a different way of approaching it. For me, when it comes to plating, because I already have my flavors. So how I work is I think of flavors first. Flavors, see, whatever grows together goes together. So I have a list of flavor that goes together. I come up with the dish in my head. But once I'm playing with the plate, I think as a chef, you're a craftsman
Right.
because building flavor, everything, you're doing labor work. But when it comes to plating, that's when I get to have the freedom of an artist. So that's when like the weed part comes in.
Mhm.
Or I go to a museum, I go here and I just watch like this star dish. It was kind of inspired by Van Loon's or the Starry Night or
Mhm.
something. I talked to you about it too, right? I was looking at it and I was like, you know what? I want to make this dish look like this. because I feel like that's when I get to play around. And with the garnishes, with the oil that we create and everything, they are adding flavor to it. But with my dishes, they already have the flavor that I want. And then they go to the plating phase. I don't bring dish in like to life in the plate. So with the garnishes, it's more about I'm fucking around, I'm having fun, I'm giving you some extra touches, and I'm just making it look beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my creative process is very collaborative. What we do is Aditya comes over before each new menu. We just spend like 10 hours just cooking the entire day. And then my favorite part comes around like 8 p.m. when we're done cooking. And then we try to assemble everything. And we bounce ideas off each other. I remember with the star thing, we were debating like, is this childish? Oh, wait, it's kind of a brand, like the nostalgia. And even like the salad course you had, the beet salad, we had no idea how to plate it. That one,
Let me tell you about this.
because this one was just flavors I found in my fridge that I just wanted to put in.
Yeah.
Thought it would taste really good, and it did end up tasting good. But we had no idea how this would look.
He sent me a picture of that salad dish. I was like, bro, if you're cooking this, I'm not coming. It looks so ugly. I was like, what is that? Like you said, he was just putting things together, and it makes sense. But when he sent it to me, I was like, no. And he said,
didn't taste it. I knew that flavor profile was just there.
But he said it tastes good. And I was like, only if it looks pretty, because I don't want to serve that. You know what I'm saying?
So talk to me, like when y'all come, like let's go through like a new dish, right? Like is it, hey, is it inspiration? Is it, yo, this is what I got in my fridge right now, like let me go from there? Is this, yo, I just had this dish, like let me go from, I just had this at Chef Abishek, so like let me try to take my take? Like how are you adding things to a menu?
For me, it's obviously for me it's an inspiration, right? Like I'm traveling, I'm seeing things on the streets. Like I was in Delhi last month, so for me, I'm like I'm out there just looking at all the street foods and how can I make this my own? Or how can I make this pretty, and how can I do like take this dish and incorporate it for me? And I'm trying to take people back, like the South Asian people back to our culture and like what our moms were cooking, and how can we make this look so beautiful. I think that's how I get my inspiration, is by traveling a lot and just, seeing people's, how they're cooking, how do they doing things. And I think my trip to India last 2 years as an adult was the most like beautiful trip, because I'm just eating everything.
Yeah. Back to what you said, right? Like for you to make good food, have to try
good food.
Yeah.
Otherwise, how are you gonna know?
Right?
If you haven't had the best dish, like best food, like relate back to it. What's good food? Think about that one dish. It has to match some way to that. To that, you'll have to feel that same spark.
I'm glad that y'all have like a true passion for it, because like I always talk about like, and not just like in cooking, right, or anything like that. Like for you to be a master at what you do, you kind of have to be a complete student of the craft, right? Like you have to completely understand like the craft itself, right? Like you have to understand where this dish was. Like before you can think about where am I going to take this dish, you have to understand where was this dish before. Right? Like before I put my hands on it, what were all the takes on it?
Yeah, that's true too. And also I feel like New York City, I'm a foreign man. This city has blessed me.
Food capital.
I came here to cook, and I've been doing that for like 3 years now. It's inspirational. And I go to these restaurants, like on my days off, I go work at like different restaurant. And like you said, I am a laborer. Like whenever I go to somebody else's restaurant, be it Chefs Akhil restaurant, it is not about me. I'm there to help him tell his story. I'm just there doing my job. But I look around, I see like what these Michelin star chefs are bringing on the table. And now I relate back. I go back home, I write those, like everything I saw, I write it down. And then I try to like reimagine my food that I grew up eating, and how like it would make sense for me to bring that to and give it that New York City swag.
Right.
So that's how I come with up with dishes. And or like after that we try it out, and then he tells me, oh, this is not good. Or he tells me, oh, this is so good. And then we're like, all right, let's go from there.
New York City is a melting pot, right? So you can find every type of dish in New York City. There's no other place like New York City where you could just try different types of food.
I think people talk about like the melting pot in terms of culture, but think about it at the most basic level. Like the food is like such a big element of the culture, right?
Of course. Just like go to Jackson Heights, for example. You'll part every corner. You got the Bangladeshi community, you got the Nepali community, you got the Spanish, Hispanic food right there. The Thai people, you just right in that one little corner. You get everything over there. You get Indian food, everything.
I think that's the easiest way to appreciate somebody's culture too.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what we are realizing as chefs as well.
Yeah.
Because that's the reason why you have a bao bun chicken chili, right? Because
Yeah.
you know.
I mean, we're lifelong learners, right?
Uh-huh.
I think it aligns well with like my passion in medicine as well, but we're constantly learning from different cultures, understanding where it comes from, respecting it, taking it, making our own. And also just learning different techniques that we can bring to the table. Like the mango lassi you talked about was clarified, right? Like I learned that a couple years ago and then just played around with it. Yeah.
Also with him, I feel like for me, it's so like, I'm so glad I'm working with Akhil because I'm very passionate about what I do. But I like whenever I'm in somebody else's kitchen, it's more about I'm learning. I'm like I said, I'm serving their purpose, but I tend to get a little too swaggy sometimes. And he just like grounds me, because he is like, he's someone that I genuinely look up to because he's like involved in so many things. And I feel like that is something that I need. Like even for me to like balance out that like crazy aspect of me, because I grew up on, I don't know if you know, but I grew up on Anthony Bourdain, Marco Pierre White, and Gordon Ramsay. So I want to be like them. That's my goal with like cooking.
You like the rock star.
Yeah, I want to be the best.
Like the rock star.
That's my like aspiration. Like like you said, where do I want to be? I want to be like these guys. But then like it's always about being humble, right? And this guy, like I don't have to look further. I just look up and Akhil's right there, and I'm like, all right, let me just.
All right, you're gonna guess me up. I'll
bit.
guess him up. He's like one of the most reliable people I've ever met. Like, I told the story in the supper club, but like when we did the supper club when we did in the beginning in May, right? He would come over at 11 a.m. to help cook and prep, and then he'd work full time at Junoon. So he goes like 11 p.m. or 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. at mine, and then he goes to Junoon for 8 hours, and he comes back at 11 p.m. It's like a 15-hour workday. I'm like, how do you do that, bro? And he's like, yo, bro, I come to yours, I cook, I go to Junoon, I labor, and then I come back to yours and I cook again. It was like so poetic.
I get it though. I get it though, right? Because I understand like the mindset, right? Because I was like looking at it, I was like, yo, like I think like I was like I'm all like, yo, like I'm not like a podcaster, like I think I'm like a rock star, right? But it comes in like the humbleness of like, yo, you can be that and be that creativity. All of you have that, right? But to understand and to apply the discipline to it, right? Especially in what you guys do, right? It's like such a good, you have like an actual product that you're outputting, right? Something that people are going to consume, right? And people have to consume, right? So then it becomes adding that layer of discipline. But balancing that creativity with that discipline is what makes y'all so good, right? Is to understand that, hey, I'm going to bring something new to the table, but also I'm going to have the discipline to execute it. Because even like I think about it, like y'all do 26 of the same dishes. Think about just quality control perspective, right? Yeah. Like, yo, anybody could be a rock star and make one fire product, right? But to be able to do it consistently and sustainably, right? Mm-hmm. That is like something that like you guys have to do every day.
That's where the craftsmen come in, like that's why being a chef, being a cook is more about doing that labor work, putting yourself, I'm telling you, the crazy night at a restaurant, he can relate to this. Yesterday, you came in at the restaurant, right? I went in to say hi because I knew I'm getting fucked like 20 minutes later because there are tickets like lining up.
Yeah.
And I was on a break. I went to Dallas and I was just not ready. I had Swinton the day before. I was not ready for it. If I would slack, quality comes there too. I can't just serve that food. So I came in, I said hello. I was hoping I would come back to say bye, but all the tickets are fired and I am just...
I think it's also about planning yourself, right? It's also like, especially when you're working in the kitchen, it's all about planning how you're prepped yourself, right? Because if you're not prepped, then everything's just like it's
chaos.
All it's chaos.
You watched the beer, right?
I was just gonna bring that up. That's what really highlighted to me and gave me. I'm a foodie, but I'm a foodie in the sense that I just enjoy food, right? Yeah. But I think that show, because it gives you a background view of what that output actually takes, right? Because I think we just overlook it as being consumers, right? We're just like, oh, I get to sit here, I put in an order, oh, it was bad, I'm gonna send it back, right? But to understand the craziness that's going on behind the scenes, to put that out, right? Because I'm like, damn, that actually is insane. Because what's like Madamji's like max staffing?
We have almost close to 18 people.
18 people, but you guys are probably serving what? Like, what is the max about? Like
we're serving 50 people.
Right? Like, and you're serving multiple courses, multiple dishes, right?
And like turnover, like every 1 hour, there's the new guest coming in.
Different variations, people sending things back, right? Like people having like, yo, I have an allergy to this, right? Yeah. Like people, I think, just overlook the insanity that actually is probably behind the scenes. I think that's why it's so cool. Those like closing doors, right? Like, because when you come out, it's all about like, what is the guest
Finesse.
experience?
It's all
right?
about the finesse.
I mean, even Aditya's experience in the restaurant, we started together, but now he has like what 5-6 times the amount of restaurant experience I do. And when we create these dishes, a lot of times he'll ground me because he knows the pickup routine, right? Like everything is prep, right? But then getting that food hot minutes before you're gonna eat it, that prep timeline, like he's got it down. So sometimes I want to make dishes that are kind of complicated. They taste good though, but they're too much. And he'll tell me like, yo, bro, we can't make this in like 5 minutes. You can't heat this up. Like this is gonna ruin our lives. Like disrupt the flow.
That's the thing. I feel like that's what I said. Like plating, it's good. It's like whatever. But if the flavor is not there, like I'm not gonna cook it because what I'm tasting in my kitchen, I want you to taste that.
Yeah, like the same thing. You don't want anything. You don't want lost
it just because I take a tweezer. And when we talked about culinary school before, like right now, the trend with culinary school is kids that watch Food Network. Like I'm a kid too. I'm just 24. I'm just saying, but they watch Food Network and they're like, oh, I want to be a chef. I want to be in these reality shows. Like I was fascinated by Anthony Bourdain. Yeah. Like I saw this guy. I was like, yo, I want to be that guy. You know. But I come to New York City. Yeah. 2 weeks at Junoon and I'm humbled. I'm like, what did I get into? I knew what my parents were talking about. Like, don't do this. Everything was like clear to me. And I sat and I talked to myself, do I still want to do this? Like with culinary school, like you're paying 100 grand a year. Once you get out, you're like almost 300 grand in debt. You're getting paid $15 an hour for almost 5 years. And then it's not as glamorous as you want it to be. You're getting shouted at because he'll talk to you about it at high, like intense situation. There's no, oh, let's talk about it, this, that, because it's not about us. It's the food has to go to you because it's about you. We're giving that experience to you.
But that jump that you make as like, that you guys have made as chefs, like that's like something everybody who wants to do anything at a high level has to go through, right? They have to understand that it's not about me as the individual.
Nothing teaches you humility like working in a restaurant.
No, because you guys are truly, and I think that's like the part that like I hope that other people that aren't like chefs can take away from this episode and you guys, right? Because you guys are truly in the service industry, right? In service of like others, in service of like the food, right? Like although like y'all have your creative passions and this is a passion for me, right? At the end of the day, I still serve a community, I still serve an individual, right? And it's very important to remind yourself of that, right? That like, yo, I might think I'm the hottest shit in the world, right? I might think I'm the next Anthony Bourdain. I might think I'm the next Joe Budden, right? But I need to consistently serve something to this person of value, right?
At the end of the day, you need to be happy, right? If you're not happy. Then we didn't provide, like we didn't do our job, right? From service to food, anything. We just want to make sure that you leave with a smile and you enjoyed your meal.
But that's what I think is important, right? Because I think a lot of us we do things like, especially like in something creative as cooking, right? Creative as like this, right? We look at it as like, oh, this is like an output of like my creativity, my wants, my desires, right? But then y'all are in like, yo, if it doesn't matter if you love if you love your dish. Like it is important that you love your dish.
Of course.
But it's also very important that whoever's eating it at the end loves that dish, right? Because otherwise it doesn't matter.
I mean, even beyond that, we want to inspire the person eating the dish.
That's his core. Like every time somebody comes in and says, oh, I didn't like this thing before, but now I love it.
The biggest compliment I can get is, oh, I didn't really like this until you made it. We got that a couple times.
Yeah, and he gets so like, he's like, yes.
I never eat duck, but the way you made it, phenomenal.
Wait, you had a duck dish? You had a duck dish. I thought the same exact thing. Because I like used to think like, oh, I don't like really like vegetables, right? I don't not like vegetables, right? I just hated how I've had them for the longest course of my life, right? Like I used to think like, oh, I hated like broccoli and I hated carrots. It's like, no. I just hated how they were being served to me. Right? I just hated the taste of whoever made that sucked, right? But like once I've had like vegetables and like things in like a very unique, very creative, I'm a huge fan. Yeah, right? I want some greens and stuff like on my dish, right? As long as
it tastes good.
Tastes good.
Right? The flavors need to be there, the freshness has to be there, the quality has to be there, and that's something that I think all of us emphasize on our food. So
no, and I'm like glad that we're like talking about, and I like want everybody to take that away, right? Like the creativity aspect of it. And then like, but the conversation I want to have with y'all more so, right? Especially like Chef Abishek, who has multiple restaurants in the city, right? Is like, how do we expand this, right? Like, how do we create like the business behind it too, right? Because for every hotshot chef, we need a Chef Abishek who's going to make this sustainable. So, because it is a community and culture, right? And because think about, you mentioned it before, right? How many people come to this country and they're like, this is the job that they could get, right? But it's a huge thing that you're like providing, right? And I'm sure it comes with its own unique challenges.
It is. I mean, the story is like, my father came to this country and he wanted to be a chef. I mean, he is a chef and he came, that was the only reason that he could escape India, making $300 a week. For us, for me, it was like, be a doctor, be a lawyer, be something like that. I was like, no, we wanted to put Indian food on the map. We want to showcase like their brown thing is, brown food is the thing. With the music, the culture. I think that was something that we also emphasize in our restaurants, just to make sure that we educate our clients, and aside just provide an experience. And
how long have you had Madamji's now?
Madamji before this was called Surya. We rebranded in after COVID.
Okay.
Yeah.
But so you've had it pre-COVID.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I've been in the restaurant industry as soon as I graduated college. I was running fast food restaurants. I was the youngest franchisee in Subways, so I was doing fast food, and
that's where the money is too.
Yeah. So I was like, I was making sandwiches, like I was a sandwich maker.
So let's talk about that, because we talked about earlier about how like, hey, like working in a restaurant is not glamorous as like in terms of like financially, right?
No.
But I always think that like I always like bring it back to money, because I want it to be like sustainable for y'all. Like I want y'all to have like this creative outlet. I want y'all to be able to bring these foods, but in order to do so, I know it needs to, like, eventually the money needs to make sense, right? We
100%.
happen to just live in the society where we like the money does matter, right? Unfortunately, right? But how as a restaurateur does that become sustainable, right? Like how do we get more South Asian restaurants or more South Asian chefs that maybe not restaurants, right? What y'all are doing, a very unique take, right? It's not a restaurant, but like hopefully that ends up becoming sustainable. Like how does that kind of happen? Like where is the money in cooking? Where's the money as
honestly,
chef, please, right there.
He's like, tell us where the money is.
Right.
No, it's actually, it's about collaborations. It's about working with the community, right? For example, what you guys do at Kunal, Indo Warehouse, we did that when they first started. When Kunal, Kani, and all these guys, we did it when they first started. It's all about collaboration. It's not a competition, right? Brown people believe that this is a competition. That's not what it is, right? It's about building community. It's about just partnering up with people, like partnering with Pankati, partnering with, Brown Girl Magazine. Trisha and I grew up together. So like these are things that we need to do and just kind of bring each other up. Like that's the only way you can do this.
Yeah.
I feel like for like when you talk about where the money is, it's more like you can't make a lot of money if you're seriously involved in being a chef. You have to be a chef and an entrepreneur.
Right.
That's where the money is. You should be willing to open fast food restaurants. You should be willing to open like mom and pop shops. Like, see, even the 3 Michelin star restaurant that you go to in New York City, all these chefs, they make their money from their bistros. Like they have 7 other restaurants in the city that they're making money from, and that fuels the main restaurant that has the name like, oh, it's his flagship restaurant. So see, we're in New York City. One of my biggest inspiration is Chef Mario Carbone. You guys know of Carbone restaurant, right?
Yeah.
He's the hottest shot in the world when it comes to hospitality right now. He just signed a deal with Hard Rock Hotels. He's doing culinary for all of their properties. So I feel like being in New York, you just have this blueprint that previous successful chef has just left for you. It's just, you have to navigate it through your story and just make it make sense to you. I feel like that's where the money is.
But also I feel like there's a lot of investors behind restaurants. Right. And where, like, for example, doctors are investing. A lot of people are just investing. I know a bunch of restaurant groups that have investors. Right. So for me, a person like me, I'm doing this by myself. So it's very difficult.
That's a different story.
It's a different story, right? Because these people have endless amount of marketing money. They have endless amount of, that's how they're getting like their hype.
Be honest. How many of these New York City restaurants losing money right now?
A lot.
A lot of them.
I figure as much.
Even the ones with the investors, they're losing a lot of money too.
Those are the ones that are losing money. I always talk about it. Like I always talk about it. Like people think that like a lot of like the flashiness, right? That's just flash, right?
Yeah.
They don't have like a real business underneath that, right?
No.
It's like people that are like funded. Like people always talk about like, oh, like this podcaster and this podcaster. I'm all like, yeah. They got this deal, but their podcasts actually don't make $0. They lose probably 50 grand paying their salaries, honestly,
For
right?
sure.
Because the quality of it actually probably sucks, right? They can convince somebody to give them money, like, cool, you did that. But like the funding is not the goal, right? For you to be sustainable, right? You like to create, like, that's why I think it's so amazing what you've done, right? Because like it's cool to have like a amazing finesse restaurant, right? But yo, is this sustainable? Is this actually paying your bills? Is this paying other people's bills?
Like you talk about, like I have friends who work at 2 Michelin star restaurant, 3 Michelin star restaurant. These kids that just graduate from culinary school, they get 35 hours, $16 pay.
Yeah.
What's the average apartment rent like in Manhattan right now? They'll have to pay like all that money they make in a month, plus they have to call their parents and ask them for money just to pay rent. Like, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's just not.
But what you brought up before is like something that because I look at y'all as like creatives as well, right? But that's what I think. Like you said something, right? It's like, yo, you're a chef and you're a business person, right? Because I always say it for like people who do like content and things like that. I'm all like, yo, that's cool. You're a creative, right? But for you to be in the business of this, for this to be sustainable, you need to have a business plan, right? You can't just be, I'm a creative and I'm gonna make like TikTok dances, right? Or I'm just a chef and I'm just gonna make cool dishes, right? You need to have a business behind it, right? For it to truly grow and expand, right? Like what y'all doing with Sowington, right? There needs to be, the food is amazing, but there needs to be a business plan behind it. And I know y'all doing that with the teams that y'all putting together on both sides, right?
So, like, I mean, I employ 60 people, right? So,
what we do is we take our experience working in the restaurant and we try to change it. One of those things is through sustainability. The other thing is how we pay people, right? We made 15 an hour. So like, I know Aditya knows, like when we hire people, we have a team now, but we'll pay them at least 25 an hour. Like,
yeah, that's
something a little respectable.
I feel like Akhil is a breath of freshness in this industry that I need. Otherwise, like I'm a very like single track minded person. Like, and that's why like I love working with him, because he brings this new perspective. Like, he wants to do like medicine and he also wants to do food on the side. So that makes me realize, oh, okay, I'm just not in this crazy restaurant industry, because there's food and I can still like partner with people like Akhil, people like Chef, like everybody who's like there for the good heart and for the passion, and just bring everybody together while like nobody, because a lot of these restaurants, they're like, the chef is telling a story, but there are people crying on the back because they can't pay for themselves. And it's New York City, you know, it's.
But that's what I'm saying, right? Like it's about creating like that. What you're doing on a very tangible level is very, very important, right? Because for people to truly believe in you and the thing, right? They have to feel like, yo, like I'm a part of this, right? Like I people always like get shy around like equity and stuff like that. I was like, yo, anybody that joins like our team, like Saz, right? Like everybody has a cut of this, right? Yeah. Because it's important to me that, yo, again, it's my story, right? But I want you to believe it. I want I want you to offer the same, because it does show in the product, right? Because if I don't care, if you're paying these people $15 an hour, they're not gonna care whether the person is having the best experience right now. Like, look, think about it. Like you, Ani brought it up on my podcast. He's like, yo, you don't think the founder of like whatever coffee chain or whatever fast food restaurant put hard work and dedication and his sacrifice and wanted to tell a story? Yeah. But the kid who's making like $10 an hour does not give a fuck about your experience.
You got to motivate them. You got to make them feel good. Like you're 100% part of this family. Like this you're going to grow with us.
Yeah.
That's the philosophy that's what my team believes in. Right. At the end of the day, for me, like everybody is getting paid, but there's days when I don't get paid. You know, because you know, as an entrepreneur, I'm like, you know, I got to make sure everybody does get paid. Yeah, but for me, I'm like, all right, you know what, this month I didn't make them. Yeah, you have to. You have to. That's part of being an entrepreneur.
But you have to, right? Right. Because people, again, like people's focus ends up being like, oh, I want to make, and those are the people that are like, yo, they might make like $100K for 2 years, right? Yeah. But it's not sustainable, right? Because you took so much from your community and you gave nothing back. Right? And people are only going to let you do that for so long before somebody looks up and was like, oh, you're just taking. Like before you can take, right? Like you have to create sustainability, right? You 100%. Have to create a culture and environment where it's like, oh, like you gave something to this community before I took it out.
I mean, Aditya and I realized that when we started growing a little, we realized what the clusterfuck front of house can be. And so when we had someone join our team, we eventually decided to offer equity in like our operation, just because we want her invested. We saw the potential, we saw the passion she had, and I think it really translated well. She opened up her space to us using her supper club. And
Shout out to Maria.
Yeah.
She's been great. Like,
No,
you
but
could see the passion.
But
she
that's an
has.
important thing. And I think I even told you this when you first told me that you brought somebody on. I was like, yo, that's important, right? Because y'all could have been like, you know what? We're going to take as much profit as we can from this. Y'all going to make 15. We're not going to bring anybody else on because this is what it is. And I need to make money, right? But when that's the focus, that's it. Like that's the highest level that you're going to reach of that.
So for
thing.
me, for example, I do intense incentives, right? So it's like, all right, we hit this much, we're all going to take some money. Right, or we're gonna do some other stuff, right? I mean, that's the way to do it, right? That's how they get motivated. That's how they're selling the new products. So that's how they're upselling. For me, it's about upselling, right? Because the higher the checks, the more tips they make, and the more money I make.
That's with Chef Abishek. Like, that's why I really like picking his brain. Like, we don't meet often, but sometimes we do, because the first time I met him, he was a real like nice guy. But I know like chefs can be assholes. Like, sometimes like it's. Because you have a life outside, you're a good person, but once you get in the kitchen, like it's a different story. But he seems like he's the same. So I feel like being like chefs like him, like in South Asian community, are trying to tell a different story. And I feel like those kind of narratives are very important, because it's the people like that don't have anything that we're like taking away from, like for us, it's okay. Like, if we don't get paid, like we haven't got paid in 3 of our last dinners, it's still okay, because we're still like doing our thing, this, that. But if our dishwasher, he's not getting paid, like it's a different story for him.
I mean, even to reflect that, like when I first met you, Chef Abi, I was like amazed. I was like, what a breath of fresh air in this industry. And the fact that we worked with you and we saw how you interacted with your staff, it was like,
I mean, like we're joking around, we're making them happy. Everybody was
culture.
Everybody's like, in my kitchen, we have music that's just playing. Like we got hip hop going on, and just like Spanish music going on, and people are just enjoying, having a great time, because music makes you feel better. Aside, from the food and all that aspect, right? So we're everybody's having a great time in our restaurant, and they feel like a family, right? I want you to feel like a family.
But that's what, like, when I always talk about like bringing something like new to this, right? It truly is. It's not just like, hey, like I'm bringing a different product, right? But it is a different mindset, a different culture, right? Because like that's really what you're bringing new to this, right? Like you've been in the restaurant industry for a minute, you've been in the restaurant forever, right? Like it's about bringing something new in the way that you approach it, the way that your team approaches it, right? The way that you approach the business, the way that you approach the food, it all matters, right? And I think like for all of y'all, right? Like, and how you're operating within like the New York City scene, like how y'all doing Sowington, right? Like that's important because it's like new, it's fresh, right? And that's like the things that are going to continue to build and survive, right? Because the stuff that's like tired and old, if you think that you're tired of it, other people are tired of it too.
Yeah, and they get stuck with it too, like some people like
they're just looking for an alternative. They're looking for an alternative, right? Like that's the thing. They're looking for an alternative, right? I was like, yo, if I could get a Sowington reservation, because these boys be booked out, right? If I could get a Sowington reservation, that would be my like monthly, like, yo, like let me go out to like eat, right? Because it's a different thing than the thing that I'm like tired of just like going to like, not to like say that like just going to a Carbone or going to like, yo, everybody been there, done that, right? But like getting a completely different like look, right? In some aspect, right?
I feel like it becomes like a little too pretentious sometimes too. With food, I feel like right now, how the scene is as well, like you're paying like what, $400 for a meal. Right. And it's like, do you want to be there? That's my question. Like for the chefs, I feel so proud that they're charging $450, because I know what it takes to bring that food. Like even at Junoon, like the amount of people that are working there, like shout out to our chef, like he's always pushed us and all that, but it takes a lot of effort. So watching them like put that like $450 menu is great, but the people that are eating it, are they appreciating it? That's the question. Or are they just there because they want to go back and sit in the table and be like, oh, we went there. Or
I post on their Instagram story and be like,
I
was there, right? I got the Carbone reservation, right? Like, you know how many people I know like, bro, didn't have no interest in the food, right? It's like, yo, I just got the Carbone. I just went to Carbone, right? Like, like that's cool, right? Like that's cool that they were able to create that. But from like the person who's creating the food with like love and like appreciation, and for you to just be like, yo, this is just for a quick Instagram flick, and I'm not even finishing the food. Like it's crazy. But I think we're wrapping up. But guys, I end every show with Call Your Shot, presented by Jungly. Kind of explained it to y'all earlier, but I'm gonna let y'all take the floor. Call your shot, guys.
God, you guys start first.
What was the question again?
Next 3 to 5 years, something you hope to accomplish in personal life, in your business, like something.
So I'm 24. Like I said, I feel like I'm 20% the chef that I can be. So I'm trying to be the best chef in New York City.
I like that. I like that.
So my background, I'm a first year in medical school at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine. And a lot of people, tell me, why are you becoming a doctor? Just become a chef. I'm like, I don't have to choose. I want to combine them. And I feel like we live in a combative food system in this country. And I want to go into a field called culinary medicine, where you empower patients through cooking. Because we have great standard medical interventions, but the leading cause of mortality are diet-related chronic diseases. And so it's, combating these food systems and showing people that they can make food that tastes good, that's healthy. Like, it's one thing to just counsel patients like, oh, you need to eat this, this, and this. But to have them go through an experience where they actually cook it and they're like, oh man, I actually did that. It tastes good. Wow. I want to do that. And so like my goal when I'm in school right now, I want to put on a class for medical students, because there's a lot of studies that show like if you are a healthcare provider and you eat better, you have better well-being, you're more likely to translate that into your patient counseling as well. And the school I live in is in a food desert. So it's like kind of opportune there. And so I want to study the efficacy of that, the feasibility of that, and kind of translate it into our nutrition elective, have like a cooking portion to it, and then eventually take into a practice where you combine a teaching kitchen into a clinic.
What do you think is, you mentioned this during Sewington too, like what is like, I would say like lacking in nutrition for like the average everyday person in terms of like whether it be like diet, what have you?
I think it's consistency. I think in this country, it's, a lot of things aren't regulated by the FDA in terms of supplements. And so there's just a lot of misinformation, and people think you need to go on like a particular diet. It's just consistency, eating what you love in the proper portions, right? And like making you feel comfortable with your eating habits and being mindful with that.
Chef Abi?
Oh, for me, next 3 to 5 years, I mean, I've been doing a lot of South Asian weddings and events and stuff like that. So I just want to continue to make a difference in people's lives, just kind of put a smile on their face and continue to grow our team, and just kind of like, making sure that they get an experience and continue to put, food, and especially South Asian food, on the map.
No.
I think I was one of the first ones to do it in a different way. So we just want to continue and just, I just want to educate others who are on my team to just continue to grow with me.
You're talking outside. You're booked for the entire year?
We're booked for the entire year.
Talking shit. That's huge. No, that's huge.
The South Asian weddings, we're booked this whole year, and
we always talk about it, bro. Like I always talk about it. The South Asian ecosystem is huge, right? Like carve your piece, bro.
We're in the right spot at the right time.
Carve your piece, right? Like
a big piece too, man.
Yeah, there's a big. Listen, it's a big pie. Even a small piece of that, right?
Yeah.
That's what everybody should be like looking to. There's you said it before, bro. $1 million weddings, just casually,
right?
And it's not a competition. Like we're all
never a
family.
competition.
It's never a competition.
No, it's part of it. Like they were gonna get the food regardless.
100%.
Isn't it amazing that they could get the food from you?
Yeah.
I mean, I tell this to my team all the time. It's like, it's either we do it or they do it.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Right.
Either.
And for my philosophy is like, look, there's enough for everybody to eat, right? Like we're all like, the New York City is so big. I do destination. Like I'm in Mexico. I'm in different parts of the world, right? So it's easy for like there's enough for the whole world, and it's never a competition. It's just about just keep growing, and that even for you guys, like just keep growing, keep spreading the knowledge, and that's what we're here that's what we're here to do.
Sir.
Yeah.
Every time we did the competition, we're learning.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fun. At the end of the day, cooking is just a very humbling act, because you're never a professional. You're always a learner. That's how you should approach.
And I think that's the best way to do it. We're the student of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, every day, right? So
just the best students.
That's why you guys. That's why y'all where y'all at, right? Because y'all students of the game, right?
Right.
Because if you're not, right, like you stagnate, right? You plateau. Y'all appreciate y'all doing this. It was honestly
fun.
just as fun as I thought it was gonna
You
be.
have to call your shot?
Huh?
You have to call your shot.
I mean, everybody knows what
Maybe it changes week to week.
Everybody knows what my shots are here. No. My shot is that I'm able to continuously do this for the next 3 to 5 years, to continue to have these types of conversations. Like I really everybody kind of knows my goal with this, right? Like I continuously want to see y'all do those things, right? Like I want to have this conversation a year from now, 2 years from now, right? And see what happened, right? Like see you open your restaurant, see where Sewington does, right? See where your brand goes in terms of catering. Like I want to see all of those things And I just want to be here. I just want to exist. Cause like, to me, it's like the coolest thing to see people that like look like me, people that like are from the stories and from the places that I'm from, continue to crush at such a high level at where we're at. To me, like that's the most important thing. But appreciate it.
Well said. Thank you for having us.
Thank
you for having us, man.
Thank y'all for listening. Peace.
Such a great episode, guys.
Oh, this was fun.
You're great at facilitating.